lesson. It's lesson number 18 in the book, but it says consistent self-reflection is a key to personal transformation. That would be my first lesson and my first habit in this book. In its definition, it said, every one of us wants to have a great life, but we must be deliberate and consistent about personal transformation. We cannot have the transformation of a country, or the transformation of a city, or the transformation of a small community without first having personal transformation of the inhabitants of that city. And the city that we're describing is not necessarily a physical city. Sometimes it's a spiritual city. Sometimes it's a combination of both. Sometimes it's a transformation in a community of practice. Sometimes it is a community of intent. But the most important thing is that we have to follow that habit. Consistent self-reflection is a key to personal transformation. The second habit, which I picked from this book again, which is one of the lessons, lesson 21 precisely in this book, says, by all means, develop competence, but pay more attention to building good character. By all means, develop competence, but pay more attention to building character. We have seen how people rise to the peak of their career, but because of character deficits, they fall from grace to grass. So this is one life lesson that Pastor Fred put in this book, and it's in lesson 21, which says, by all means, develop competence, but pay more attention to building good character. Thank you, Pastor Fred. I'll go quickly to the third one. I tell you there are 10 that I've marked out as the 10 habits that we really need to embrace in this book. So let me go to habit number 3. And habit number 3, forgive me, because like I told you, I have it all mapped out and sliced so that it's easy for me to reflect. But don't mind me, because sometimes with the glasses, which comes with how the eyes begin to see after 50, it says, lesson 17, you can recreate yourself. You don't have to settle for your current version if it's not good enough. Please put your hands together for this young man. You can recreate yourself. You don't have to settle for your current version if it is not good enough. That will be my lesson number 4, or habit number 4 from lesson 17 of the book. It's followed closely by lesson number 15 in the book that says there are many pathways in life, only one is yours. There are many pathways in life, but only one is yours. Pastor Fred told the story of how many of his friends at the time of his graduation were excited about banking, and they all wanted to be bankers. He even interviewed, I'm sure, for banking job. But he soon realized that that was not his calling. And the moment he got into his calling, he realized that that was the space that God actually meant for him. And today we are here because he followed that pathway that God chose for him. So what pathway are you on? How often are you evaluating your current situation to know that you are where God really wants you to be? And therefore you can stay within your lane, like my people would say, follow your lane. Oh. I'll go to lesson number 5. Learn from anyone, including those you don't want to be like. This is lesson 28 in the book, and it's my own habit number 5. Learn from anyone and everyone, including those you don't want to be like. The truth is that sometimes we always are getting excited about the people we want to be like, But we should also be careful about the people we don't want to be like. And that's what is in lesson 28. And Pastor Fred gave us examples of people he never wanted to be like and how he made efforts to ensure that every time he's checking on his barometer to ensure that he's not growing in any direction of those people that he didn't want to be like. Quickly to key lesson number 6 for me and the habit 6. And I would say it's in lesson number 23 in the book. It says you cannot substitute personal discipline and hard work with prayer in your quest for success in life. And I can tell you that Pastor Fred lives this by example. I have been privileged to worship in his church a couple of times. And I can tell you that there's no time I go to that church that I don't feel like a student of the Bible, that I don't feel like a student of life. Because what happens in that space is nothing but pure life teaching. At some point, I was sitting in the church and Pastor Fred unveiled something called the quarterly evaluation session. And in the quarterly evaluation session, he was asking people to evaluate themselves and track their growth in the last 3 months of being in church. I don't know what church you attend, but please correct me if your pastor has evaluated you in the last 1 year. Talk less of now having a quarterly evaluation. Maybe you don't understand. I'm a monitoring and evaluation specialist. I spent 21 years of my life in the United Nations doing monitoring and evaluation. So when I see a tool that is measuring quarterly performance of an individual with relation to a church, even in the UN where we think that we are evaluators, they call me police for trying to do annual evaluation. So when people are now doing quarterly evaluation in the church on spiritual growth, on personal growth, on growth within the family, on growth within the community, what are you giving back? All that are in that template. And I just had to steal the template and go to my pastor. Sir, we need to do this within the youth church. And to the glory of God, that is happening now. So please put your hand together for us being able to pick what we would like to see happen. Quickly to my habit number 7, which is key lesson number 24 in the book. And it's apt. It says, God will not do for you what he has resourced you to do for yourself. I thought that was deep. If that is coming from a pastor, he's telling you, hey guys, God will only bless the work of your hands. God will not do for you what he has resourced you to do for yourself. That to me, habit number 8, key lesson number 24 in the book. So when you go back to your copy of the book, please underline that and ensure that all the time you are focusing on it even as you pray. Because God will only bless the what? The work of our hands. So that means that we need to ensure that we keep learning and we keep working in the direction of that growth. The next one is key lesson number 35 in the book. And it says, service is an important success factor. And there's a beautiful picture of a waiter. And it gets me thinking, what do waiters do? They serve. And Pastor Fred used the analogy of saying that most of the time we are waiting on God. Can we at least serve while we wait? Can we at least think of ourselves as the waiter in the room whose only responsibility is service during the waiting session? So whether you're waiting for a bigger job, a bigger contract, a bigger expansion of whatever you're doing, this book by Pastor Fred says service is an important success factor. You're serving in church, you're serving at your workplace, you're serving someone at the moment because you are an apprentice or you are in the process of learning. Service will definitely make the difference. And finally, he talks about key lesson number 40. I don't know why he decided to put this as the last lesson, but it is indeed a great lesson if you ask me. It says, every new day is an opportunity to sow new seeds. And of all, I would read out this particular lesson because it resonated deeply with me. It says, the Bible says, as long as heaven and earth remain, seed time and harvest will not cease. In other words, as long as we remain here on earth, we will keep sowing seeds on a daily basis. This is not about agriculture, but about the goodness that should flow from our lives to the people in the world around us. Every act of kindness you show to people every day is a seed sown. Every gift given to the poor around you is a seed sown. Even the Bible says that when you give to the poor, you lend to the Lord. Every good seed, irrespective of how big or small, either directly or indirectly, to people is a seed sown. The good deed may not even be directly to a person or persons. It may be a good deed for the society or the nation. It is also a seed sown. So are you going to join Pastor Fred today and become a sower? The choice is ours. And finally, what would I say about a book so beautiful as this in a review? I would say it's a beautiful book, even in print. I would say it's a full content book that you cannot put down. I would also say it's a reference book. It's not a book you read for once and you say, I know what it contains. It's a book that becomes your evaluation manual that you have to keep going back to and asking yourself, what am I doing? Lady Kemps is smiling because she knows that that's what am I doing means something to her. So what would I recommend? In the book, I would have wanted to have a detailed table of contents that would tell me the 40 lessons on page that is showing that introduction. So that way, when I'm in a rush to go and get a particular lesson for a particular situation, I can just quickly go there and pick the lesson and go to that page, and then I know that today is about sowing. So let me see what this book says about sowing. It will have made it easier. Then, of course, because we were trying to be colorful in the print, some of the prints had challenging colors like purple and black. Beautiful to the eye, beautiful on the computer, but in print production, we don't make that happen because the contrast must be there to make it easy for people to read. I would also recommend that we have an ebook version because we are getting more and more busy, and it would be really good for me to be able to listen to these over and over, plugged to my Wi-Fi, plugged to my devices, and be able to continuously listen to it. So that is a recommendation, and I believe that it will come. Finally, I think you did something unique in this book. A surprise to those who pre-ordered. And I think for as long as this book remains in print or electronic or ebook, some book names are already written in gold, and I'm proud that my name is among them. Not because of what was paid, but because I want to encourage each and every one of us to see this pattern as important, learning to appreciate those who support you, even when they have not seen what you're about to do. Majority of us presents opportunities for people to invest in things that we want to do. We sometimes need to engage other people in projects that they don't even know anything about. But as soon as they release the funds or the support or connect us to the person that we need to meet, we tend to forget to even say, thank you, it went well. Thank you for what you did. Thank you for the encouragement. Thank you for the path that you took me through. Sometimes you don't know what that thank you would do to the person that you are saying thank you to. These days it has been made so easy because you can even send a WhatsApp message. You can buy a card and send to the person to say thank you. The generation that we are living in is a generation that seems to believe in that entitlement mentality. I've just called my uncle to connect me to this agency, and you get connected to that agency. And that's all. It's your uncle. It's his responsibility to connect you anyway. So you don't need to go back and say, thank you, uncle, or thank you for making it happen. Please allow the children to enjoy themselves, Pastor. Don't worry. They are learning by doing. The truth is, as we grow, some of these things are important for us to understand. So, I present to you, I'm not the presenter of the book, but the reviewer. And I hope that the 10 very, very important habits that I've chosen to call them will resonate with you when you eventually get to read all the 40 lessons. It was indeed difficult for me to pick out 10 out of 40, but those 10 spoke to me personally. And I want them to also speak to you. And I believe that when you eventually read, if you have not started reading and you have not gotten it, like the MC said, no one is allowed to leave the room without getting a copy. The single most important thing that I also want to tell you is that the power of perception, just like in one of the books by Tokwe, is much more important than the power of reality. So what you perceive as being possible, what you begin to imagine, those of you who are yet to write your books because you have not been able to sit down and you are thinking it's such an Herculean task. I can see smiles in most faces in the room because we all have a story to tell and the world must read our story. So let's make every effort to get them off the computer, to get them off the manuscript, to take the bold step of getting an accountability partner, which is one of the lessons that are in this book. Get someone to hold you accountable for that book. Get someone to keep asking you how far you have gone with it. Pay an editor and send the first chapter. The editor will most likely be calling you to say, where is chapter 2? Where is chapter 3? When are we publishing? And that becomes something that can get you faster into delivering this. Because feast cannot happen in isolation. Feast has to lead us to a critical mass. And to get a critical mass, each and everyone must begin to tell our stories differently. I worked for the UN for 21 years. And when I had spent my first 50 years of life, I did an evaluation. And I thought to myself, this is the time to leave now. The UN expects me to work till 65. So I was 15 years ahead of when they expected me to retire. I had a permanent contract, so it wasn't about fear of whether I was going to get a renewal or not. And I remember going to my human resources and discussing my exits. And they thought I was mad. In fact, they gave me several options. Take 1 year leave of absence. Just go, check whether you really want to leave. And I said, no, I'm done. I'm done here because I have learned all the things that I needed to learn. Now is my time to give back to the world that I have served and to God that has given me the privilege to act in this capacity. That was in 2015. It's been 6 years after that. And I have never regretted for 1 minute leaving the UN. In fact, now they call me to come and tell them how to leave early. I have a program now with them every 6 months that I go there and talk to them about how to take early retirement. And now they are saying I should digitize it such that other countries can benefit from it. It has become a model that they want to talk about. And just about a month ago, I got a call from our headquarters in New York saying that I have been appointed as the ex-UNICEF representative for Nigeria, meaning that they were so impressed with what I was doing with the retirees, with the potential retirees, that they wanted it to be institutionalized. So now we have over 200 people on a platform that I administer for the ex-retirees, helping them to go into stuff like this in giving back. We have one of our colleagues who is a double amputee. She runs an NGO called the Feet of Grace, and she provides prosthetic legs to indigent people who would never have thought of walking again. And all of us try to put in resources in that in order to encourage that. We have another one who is providing water in hard-to-reach villages. So people are now seeing that even in retirement, you're not tired. You can continue to contribute to the society. And it makes a whole lot of difference. But it starts by somebody thinking that maybe the only route is not by waiting till you are using walking stick before you leave. And they say, oh, he used to work for the UN. Because that's what I saw people doing all the time that I was there. But I have this thing that I believe that when God has deposited something in you and you allow that thing to lay dormant, you're actually doing a disservice, not just to yourself, but to God who has given you that inspiration. Finally, before I drop the mic, I'll share a very small story of my upbringing. When I was 9 years old, my father had a young soldier who had run away from home during the war to go and join the army. It was some of the things they were doing in the late 60s. Young men would just follow their friends to recruitment camp and they would move them into the army. And this, my uncle, left. So we didn't see him for quite some time. And when we eventually saw him, he had been posted to Dodam Barracks. And then my father said, oh, let's go and see him in Dodam Barracks. So we went to Dodam Barracks. He was a sergeant living in the barracks. And then Dodam Barracks is, for those of you who know Lagos very well, it's very close to Ikoyi. Then there's Obalende. Obalende is the slum. You cross the bridge and you get into Queen's Drive, which is the Eyebrow Ikoyi, old Ikoyi in the waterfront. The children from the slum would go across to pick bottles and use clothes, and there was no cricket then. So those people would throw away the clothes that the children are not using in the dustbins. So these children will come from across the water and they will pick canvas, pick stuff. And they also make friends with the children of the rich, that they will tell them, okay, come, when my daddy buys me, I will give you the one that I have. So I had them having that conversation in the barrack during my 2 weeks holiday. And I said, I want to come with you to this place that you go and you come back every Saturday morning all happy. And then I followed them there. When I crossed that water, the first thing that came to me was that that environment had a different ambience. The waterfront was clean. I could smell, the lagoon. And I saw the beautiful mansions with beautiful cars parked in the garages. Citroen, in those days, those were the cars. I saw the Citroen, the Citroen, you start it and then it comes up. When you switch it off, it goes flat. So I saw it in the garage and I was looking, wondering what it would be like to live in this beautiful environment. So when the children that came with me were telling me, can we ask these people to give us stuff? I said, no, we don't need their stuff. I don't know where that came from. I was not even 10, I was 9, thereabouts. I said, we don't need their stuff. We just need to think about how we are going to also live here in the future. And they all laughed at me. They said, do you know the type of people that live here? But I didn't let that deter me. In my head, as small as I was, I wanted to live here. I wanted to work here. And then I got back home and I told my dad, I said, Daddy, why are we living in Ikorodu? Ikorodu is like living in Yanya. And, I've just visited my Tama for the first time. So you can imagine a child going back to Yanya and challenging his father, why are we living in Yanya and not in my Tama? So my father said, well, We are living in Ikorodu because I am not a graduate. And I looked at him, I said, why are you not a graduate? He said, because I didn't go to the university. I said, oh, really? I said, so if I go to university, I will be able to live in Ikoyi. He said, yes, you will. Not just live in Ikoyi, you'll be able to buy a house in Ikoyi. You'll be able to, and he gave me all the good reasons why I need to go to school and be the best. I looked at him and I said, anything else? He said, no, that's not how. You cannot be second in your class if you have to live in Ikoyi. And I looked at him, I said, okay, Daddy, I promise you, from this moment, I will never be second. He said, no, that's not enough. We're going to go to the university so that you will see what the university looks like. So he took me on a ride of the University of Ibadan. And we left. He uses what we call under 190. It was the power bike of their time. So he parked it at the gate and then made me walk with him. You know when you hold your little boy, walk with him through that gate. If you've never been to University of Ibadan, it's one of the best built universities because it was built in the pre-colonial days. So you have that archway that says, welcome to University of Ibadan. It's still in my head as if it was yesterday, as a little child, and walk me through and say, you see those young people in white overall, they are the science students. They are going to be medical doctors and these. You see these ones that are carrying all those big books, those are the science and the heart students and this and that. And took me to hall of residence. This is Azikiwe Hall. This is the hall of residence that you will live while you are in school. So you leave home and you come and live here. Say, but what? You must not be second in your class. Only first class students come in here. So I got back home with a completely different mindset of wanting to go to that university, wanting to be the best in my class, and everything changed about me. But guess what happened? Exactly 21 years later, I was a 31-year-old young man. My first office with the UN was in that mansion that we stood to pick glasses that I said, this is where I would like to work. The owner is Bibakari, one of the millionaires of those days, had gone bankrupt, and the First Bank had taken over the building and they had let it to the United Nations. So inside that same pavilion was my office. And guess what? I was the administrative officer responsible for managing that building. God was not done yet. A few months later, they gave me a house in Ikoyi, just 2 streets away from that waterfront, Afro-Rewani Drive. And my children would walk from the house to that waterfront, like the children that I saw 21 years earlier, that I said, this is how I want my own children to grow. I didn't want them to grow up in the slum. I didn't want them to grow up in the Ikorodu. I wanted them to grow up in the Ikoyi. And God made all of that happen. So mind what you expose your little children to. Mind what you give to them, even as you're growing. Mind what you think is possible about Nigeria. If you are not seeing the Nigeria that is going to be of benefit to you and your family and the generation yet unborn, you are not likely to walk into it. So please begin to see it from now. And finally, let us thank Pastor Fred for the opportunity to learn from his life lessons.
Amazing. Thank you, sir. Prof, you're welcome. I will read something about Pastor Fred before I read the citation of our prof here. And there's a reason. If I look back to about a decade ago, when I first encountered this incredibly human gentleman, if you look at him, the way he looks like a human gentleman, I still remember struck that I cannot find a matching order for the quality of his moral character, the beauty of his intellect, and that is what I see in this work. The words are are lively, the words are easy to understand, and the words are true. Not forgetting the grace of his writing, his concern for an improved humanity, and above all, his absolute attendance to a belief in and an affirmation of a good society. That is written by Uncle Dapo, the publisher CEO of Premium Times, about the author and about the content. Please, can we just give a round of applause? When I said that we needed to get this book before we leave, I actually meant it, because I'll be sincere, and I've learned from you, because I want to be a fast learner now. I used to learn very fast before. I lost it. I started idealizing things, forgetting that when I started life worked for me, because for everything that happened, I asked, what is the meaning of this? I will ask a lesson. What's the lesson? I even had a book that for over 3 years, I write what I learned every day. You know, and I know that it was the fountain of the wisdom that I had. So when I was reading this morning, I haven't bought it like 3 weeks ago. I felt ashamed for reading it because I was coming here. Let me confess, pastor is a pastor. He will understand, you know. And that was when I've been watching him for some months. Before he started the church, we talked about it. He started, I came, I disappeared, I came back again. But all this process, I was checking him out actually. Yes, because I think Deji knows I've been severely dealt with by a religious system that affected my psyche. So the only person that can reconstruct me is somebody like this. And I'm not saying because he knows I can tell him nothing, you know, but it's this gentleman. So when I read through these works and the reason why we were coming here, it just dawned on me that, finally. I told him something yesterday and I'll say it here, and he said it in this book. All my life from 1990 was when I went for my secondary school. I have been mentored till 2010 on anything, parenting, gentleman, everything. And when I met a young man, not young, he's about 60 now, some 2010 for mentorship, he referred me to another platform that is responsible for some of the things I have now in nation building. But when I went to meet that particular mentor, I actually meant him to mentor me on business. And he told me that, young man, I cannot mentor you on business if I don't take you to this institute to learn on nation building. And like John the Baptist, when I met that man, I left him. But you know what happened? That business that I left for the reason for meeting him began to also to suffer. Okay, so when I saw what he said about mentorship, and 2 years ago, I knew that the reason why certain part of that business suffered was because of absence of mentorship. And I saw his life, and he has a 360-degree way of mentorship. I knew that this is the person. Because accountability matters, right? Everybody is looking for who to mentor him. You go to a place, they say, mentor me and the rest. Everybody needs to be directed. And like you're also going to hear from our keynote speaker, he's a man of mentorship. Great mentorship. When I mean great. So you eventually look like not just mentor, what discipled you. So this book reminded me of who I was 1998, 1999, 2000. Those were the years I was chronicling my life lessons every day. And Pastor, I think I'm going back again. Thank you very much. You get a book. So this morning, we have our keynote speaker here. We're going to be talking about personal transformation, an imperative for national building. And I would like to introduce to you by reading a citation of Dr. Sam Amadi. Dr. Sam Amadi, a policy strategist and law governance expert, is the director of Abuja School of Social and Political Thoughts and a visiting professor at the Emerald Energy Institute at the University of Port Harcourt. He is the chair of the Development Law Group of the Nigeria Bar Association section on public interest law and development, which he, as a founding council member, he was associate professor and head of the Department of International Law and Jurisprudence at Bayes University, Abuja, until June 2021. He was a visiting research fellow at the Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies from 2016 and 2018. Between 2010 to 2015, he was chairman and CEO of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, we call it NEC. He has been editor of journals and held several lecturing and advisory positions in universities, government institutions, and international organizations. Dr. Amadi has been a member of several boards, including the UN Advisory Council of Global Electricity Initiative, Section of Public Interest and Development Law of the Nigerian Bar Association, Center for Law and Social Action, Amodiva Foundation, a Washington-based think tank. He is the chair, Board of Trustees of Albino Association of Nigeria and Civil Liberties Organization, Abuja branch. He has been chairman of some Senate technical committees, including Technical Committee on Review of Nigerian Transport Sector Bill and Senate Technical Committee on Review of Nigerian Competition and Consumer Protection Commission Bill. He was a member of the Presidential Committee on Reform Process in the Public Service in Nigeria and was a consultant and member of the Ministerial Committee on Bloody Oil constituted by the Minister of Foreign Affairs in 2009. In 2020, he was a visiting lecturer at the Energy Policy and Regulation at the Emerald Energy Institute for Petroleum, Energy Economics, Policy and Strategy, University of Port Harcourt for his MSc and PhD studies. Dr. Amadi has engaged with various international organizations such as USAID, OPEC, and AU. In 2007 and 2008, he was member Nigerian delegation to the Commonwealth and Heads of Government Summit in Uganda and the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, in Saudi Arabia. He has been consultant for Open Society Initiative of West Africa on migration, globalization, and human rights in 2008. He was a fellow at the Carr Center for Human Rights Policy, Kennedy School of Government, Harvard. He has authored books and articles in both local and international journals. He presently coordinates the Abuja School of Social and Political Thoughts and as the Chief Ideas Officer, and also the Chief Idea Officer of the Logosphere Advisory, a public sector policy and strategy consulting firm in Abuja. He holds a research doctorate degree, SJD, in law from Harvard University, Cambridge, Massachusetts, 2004, a Master of Public Administration, and a Master's in Law from the same institution, Harvard. He has an LLB from the University of Calabar in 1992. He was called to the Nigerian bar in 1993 after passing the Nigerian Law School. In 2020 April, he was appointed member of the Law Reform Committee, a standing committee of the Nigerian Bar Association. Yesterday, he told me personally, without what I'm reading here, that he's a PhD student of the University of Abuja in economics. Please rise up and join me to clap and welcome Dr. Sam Amadi. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, sir, for thank you. I think it was good that I listened to you first, so that I can learn some things as well. Thank you very much. Well, I had just a small, okay, good. I would like to, I think it's first, listening to you, and of course, I know that many Nigerians are accomplished. I was wondering, why is the nation not accomplished? You know, people like you, all of you talk about great experience. So why are we not doing well? And maybe that's one of the things I will probably like to say as we continue. Let's get to this. Okay. Who's controlling? Am I going to control? Okay. You can actually, yeah. So let's. Okay. Okay. So. Personal development, from personal development to group transformation. And I think I like the notion that Nigeria, everywhere I go to in this country, we talk about Nigeria, how to fix the country. But essentially, it seems to me that I tell people, yesterday I was speaking to some young people who are doing 30 days of leadership at public service, okay, 2 days ago, Public Service Institute. And I said, is there enough to believe that Nigeria can get better? Or if we know that God is a God of fairness, if God calls a meeting in heaven, should Nigeria change? You know, we want that to change. Is there enough evidence, or is it fair, really, that Nigeria should turn out good based on the quality of thinking, actions that we deploy? I would think that Nigeria is probably not ripe for, or not qualified for the level of transformation we're looking at. Because I feel that the country, contrary to what we think, I don't think we're a very intelligent country. It's possible that we are very intelligent people, but collectively, our work does not show enough intelligence. That's my view. Even in public policy, when I look, people come on television, our experts, when they talk, you wonder whether we are really experts. So I want to debunk the view that we are very smart people. I don't think so. Or at least it doesn't show in the quality of work we do. So that's very important. Obviously, people, when I talk about Nigerian education being very poor, people say, oh, but when we go to America, we make first class at Harvard. Yeah, yes, because maybe we learn the hard way. And because we learn the hard way, we have the capacity for high level tolerance of difficult situations. And then we go to where resources are provided, knowledge is provided, and we excel. But really, the quality of our learning is poor. So I just want to look at three, if I knew how to put everything, I'll put it in 3 by 3. That means strategy, operations, and tactics. And then I put the other 3, heart, mind, hand. And I put the other 3, wisdom, intelligence, skills, techniques. Okay. So I call it the 3 by 3 world. And what this does for me, both for nation and for individuals. So everything starts from strategy. So strategy is oftentimes people think it's the same as maybe a statement of purpose, intent. This is what we're doing. Strategy is more than that, as I will show. So from strategy, in terms of personal development, you move to operations. And you get to tactics, we start delivering, we start getting the job done. Now, if you look at the second follow-up there, we talk about hearts, heart and mind. Now, strategy is with our heart as human beings, you know, like he talked about, or God talked about how he saw the children enjoying, and he imagined himself living in that particular place. So he starts visualizing himself, he starts creating possibilities and making choices. With the picture the father gave him, he started making choices of the kind of life he wants to live. He wants to be a top performer. I used to, when I argue with my daughter, and I say, you have to do, say, Daddy, look, so person made money, he didn't go to university, he didn't make first class. So why are you bothered about this first class stuff and Harvard and all that? And I tell her, look, I said, you are at this level as a student, your ultimate focus should be best of education. It doesn't necessarily guarantee everything, but that's what the stage is. So next stage, you don't think about all that, but for now, strategy should be to perform excellent, to get the best you can get. So that strategy is about vision. Now, it's the heart you imagine, you visualize, you make strategic choices, as I will show later. Then operations, and this is where it matters most. People have argued that there's a problem between execution and strategy. So, oh, the policies will have, many of us say we have good laws, but the problem is what? Implementation. Or people say we have a good plan, but our problem is that we need to execute it. Now, people argue, is there a difference? Is it bad strategy or poor execution? For those of you who are in M&A and who work with operational, but what people, most people argue, or some of us, if your strategy is good, execution will go. If you face execution, your strategy is very bad. Because at the strategic level, you should be able to map out what it is. And then at operations, you begin to also, we'll get to that. So the mind, thinking, intelligence, knowledge, that's the problem with third world countries. We don't invest so much on knowledge. And so I've been in government, sometimes when you want to complicate things, when we start to think and say too much, you know, there are certain myths and stories that we tell ourselves that show where we are. So we're going to say too much grammar. So we are debunking the intelligence. So we say we know what to do, we know the answer, we know just, and of course, I've not seen a serious government policy document that really rigorously analyzes the problem. Even the power sector where we are, if you look at our power sector, maybe policy paper, it's probably 30 pages and does not provide detailed information as to the problem. That's what you have to do at the level of operations. I will go and say that. The level of hands, tactics, is execution, getting it done. So we talk about, that's why I use the word hand. So with the mind, you imagine, with your heart, you desire, okay? With your mind or brain, you create the facts, the knowledge, the information about your life. This is why I'm not, getting it right. This is what I need to do. Like the kind of things his father did was very graphic. You have a picture of where you could be. And he took you through a process to understand the process, the things that need to be done. Maybe if you tell me you want to be a doctor, you like those white uniform, okay? Then he will tell you, look, biology, chemistry, mathematics. Then you begin to see what are the processes, what do I need to do? And then even if you imagine it and created a template, but you're not able to, maybe you have attention deficit, or maybe you're hyper, you can't stay in the class, and you couldn't find a way around about it, you will still not be able to execute. So the mind is then at the level of strategy. The key thing there is wisdom. Wisdom is the facility for making right choices. So you look at several kinds of life, and you say, this is what I want to do. So it's wisdom that leads to strategy. And strategy is not a science, as science and art. It's a narrative about facts. You look at this, for example, if you look at why is this place not working? Or somebody says, why do we come too late? Why do we come late every day? Now you can go back and analyze, waking up, get all the facts assembled. But the wisdom is for you to get your hand on a narrative, a story about their function. Why is this not working? So it's not exactly a science. It's both science and an art. It's a narrative. It's able to make the right choice and diagnose properly. We're going to talk about that later. But that's why I said that the complementary human resource that goes with strategy is wisdom. The Bible says wisdom is to direct. It's about direction. It's about where should you go? How should my life be like? Who should I become? Ideation, okay? And the intelligence at the level of process intelligence. You assemble, you consult people, you consult experts to get the best. And at this level, you put the right team together and provide incentive to perform. Okay. So this, if you look at great nations or individual life, you see that these things work this way. That's why they said great leaders don't have to be the smartest people. If they have wisdom, they'll decide how the nation will go. This is who want to be the best. When Lee Kuan Yew came back from Oxford, and they met and said, look, this is the kind of country we want to be. This is who we are, and this is our advantage. This is therefore the kind of country. So it requires choice and things to forgo. They can't be everything. But they have to say, this is what we can be. Going by our strength and weakness, going by our circumstances, this is the kind of person we can become. And as they struck a vision of their country, they have to sit back and say, to be the financial hub of the Asia, or to be the most productive city, but without resources, natural resources, what do we need to do? What do we need to develop? Competencies. They start with intelligence. They assemble the smartest people, they worked it out well. And then, of course, they have to deploy efficiently. They have to be consistent. And so if you look at individual life and nation, the same pattern. You have to diagnose your problem. You have to find, the Bible says, choice is very important. And that choice is strategy. Make a choice. Choose here today. Sir. Choose, I'm giving you life and death. Is a level of strategy. The way you now make that choice, you now see, what do I need to do to walk in the path of life? Intelligence. You read the Bible, you study, you consult people and so on. Okay, next slide. So we get there quick. Okay. Now, when we talk about strategy, it's not possible to change a life without a strategic focus. That means what I see. I'll give you an example. One day we used to go late to church, me and my wife and my family. I wanted to say, why should we go to late? So I made up my mind. I said, okay, let's audit where we go to late. I discovered that it starts from the night before. We are late sleepers. Even as I walked into the office, by the time I get home 9, my children, everybody will sleep 11, 12 every day. Even the small, everybody, we are late. We're used to sleeping late. So it impacts the next morning. So that day we made up our mind, we said, no, we'll never be late to church again. But we didn't go back and work out what are those things that we do? And then how do we now sleep early, prepare everything, get the clothes ready? So we have good intention not to be late, but the process of reversing that habit of late coming, we've not worked it out. So we fail oftentimes, not because we don't want to succeed. Paul says, the things I don't want to do, at least I do. These are wrong things. It's not like a good thing. He knows the wrong thing. I just want to do. Why is it says, woe me, who can help you? Because he's a victim of habits. So habits require understanding process of rewiring them because it's actually fact-based. Okay? So at the level of strategy, the first is diagnosis. Why are things not working? Power sector, and this is very seductive. A diagnosis is not necessarily what you want to see. You know, sometimes things are not working. We say, oh, it doesn't work because NEPA, we don't have, we need a minister of power who is an engineer. When I was appointed, he says, how can I appoint someone who's not an engineer? And I asked some of engineering brothers, I said, have you looked at the work of regulation, what is required? You first have to understand, diagnose, and say, why do you have a problem? So oftentimes in this country, we are solving the wrong problem. We're not solving the real problem. For example, Nigeria's problem of development is actually a problem of statehood. We've not constituted a state properly that has the coherence to develop. So economists, political scientists can look at a bit of what is not, you know, some of the fundamentals not working, productivity, revenue profiles, fiscal deficit. But at the heart of it is, if you don't have a country that is designed to be productive, so instead of dealing with those symptoms, why not deal with the fundamental problem? So a diagnosis is described as a narrative of facts, perception, construction of it. So things that happen needs to be constructed so it becomes intelligible to you. This is why we have this problem. You start dealing with that. Now, when you have a good diagnosis, the next set of things you do is you go to what we call guiding principle. Now, what a guiding principle does for you is that it gives you a framework to the future you want to. So I'm here now. I'm not educated or I don't have skills. So my income is low. I can't take care of myself. I'm thinking about how will I buy a house, take care of my children. So that's a problem. My problem is lack of skills to earn money. Is that not correct? So the guiding principle in my life will not be to make myself a skillful person so that I earn. Now, this is very important because this is what is the link between the third set of coherent action. Now, if you look at anybody who has failed, let's say, for example, New Year, you make a will, you make a what do you call it, a resolution. Eh? This is what I will do. This. Now, you have to diagnose why you are not doing what you ought to do. You need to provide a guiding principle. A guiding principle will be that motion that connects to the destination. And it's what will help you choose actions. Now let's take, for example, the power sector. We diagnose our problem as, let's say we say our problem is that we don't have a functional market that's able to generate, create more power and supply it efficiently. Now, your guiding principle will be, we want to get to an efficient market-based. Is that correct? That principle is what will now tell you what actions to take. But oftentimes in our own plan, we take our actions. They look like nice actions. So we're going to do this, we're going to privatize, we're going to do this, we're going to do this because they sound like the right thing. But have no real connection to their problem diagnosis. In medical practice, what we call differential diagnosis doctors, clinical doctors, not adjudicated doctors, clinicians who do real clinical work. If you say you have malaria or you are feeling feverish, they'll do differential. They look at, is it malaria? The symptoms will look like malaria, okay? It must look like typhoid. It must look like COVID. It must look like several pneumonia. So when but to see if it is malaria, they ask you, do you feel pain on your neck? He said, yes. Oh, that may not be malaria again. They rule it out. Differential diagnosis. They look at this. But when you cough, do you get blood? They say, oh, then it can't be typhoid. Right? So that's how they gradually differentiate until they get to what is most probably your problem. And that diagnosis will inform the line of action and the set of prescriptions that will be. So that's how you develop a strategy that works. But if you look at our lives, we rarely follow. We see strategy as, oh, we're taking a strategic action. What's strategic action? Have we done a diagnosis? Have we linked it with a guiding policy principle? Have we developed actions that derive from that diagnosis? That's what's called coherent action. The word coherent is important to me because that's really where Nigeria is. We're not a coherent country. What we want to say with our mouth is not what we do. We want to say Nigeria unity is non-negotiable. At the same time, everything we do is to emphasize what divides us. So basically, we're very incoherent people. Our mouths and our actions are not aligned. And that's why strategy is very important to understand. So if you get to strategy, diagnosis, guiding principle, set of coherent action. What do you want to do? Okay, next slide. Now, element of operations. The problem is that oftentimes people have good strategies. Look at strategy document, they're very nice, okay? But if they don't drill down, followed by operational book, some people call it maybe action plan, all kinds of names. But the key thing about it is that it identifies objective and key results. This is the strategy. This is the objective key result. In fact, we'll go into Andy Cove of Intel, who is a champion of OKRs. And that's what they used to build Intel. That's the most recognized and respected process for implementation in first-class operations in the world. Andy Cove did that and showed how it works. So there must be key objectives. These are key results that show that that objective is achieved. So if your objective is to live holy, what are the measure of holy living? So this year, I've not been a good Christian. I want to live holy. I want to live obedient. I want to live a spiritual life. If you don't identify the key result that tells you, so the objective will be there, the key results that support objectives. So that's getting to. Then when you do that, you focus and commit to priorities. The underlying factor about life is scarcity and choice. We don't have enough resources to solve all the things we can do. So success implicates prioritization. Having an objective and a key result, what are those priorities that will now drive this? When I teach 8 habits of success, I have a branded 8 habits, which I'll show briefly here. I talk about choice and sacrifice, forgoing. When you choose, you forgo other options. You can't do everything. So choice implies that something has been forgone. And that's what we learn from the economics of opportunity cost. There's always something. So you look at the cost, look at what is effective to get a result, you focus on it. When I was a young person, I used to be, when I joined Redeem, I became a Sunday school teacher. We used to do Sunday school review on Saturdays. I was a member of ANA, Association of Nigerian Authors. We meet on Saturdays. One have to go. Is that awesome? So it's based on priority. At that point, my priority was to grow spiritually. I abandoned ANA. Maybe now I would have left Sunday school. Sunday school review. Maybe I've left it and joined ANA. But it was clear to me. Sunday school review. So it brings to me home the idea of sacrifice. We'll see more about that. Then when you prioritize, you focus and commit, you align and connect for teamwork. Very important. And then finally, track for accountability. So visions cannot fail if you first identify the elements of operation. How do I drive it? What are the key objective results? You focus on them. What are the priorities that will drive this result? Then the teamwork, the kind of work you need to do, and then you provide a framework to track. Like Pastor said, maybe quarterly review. Have I done this? Okay, next slide. Okay, now, so the link between strategy, operation, and tactics is very like football. I do a whole lot of football. So you have Guardiola, you want to win. Your strategy, your vision is to win triple this year. Okay, you map out your strategy, how you play with bats, all those things. You now bring your how operations, but then the day of football, maybe Bernardo da Silva, if you say run up, he runs down. Will you deliver results? So tactics must map closely to operation. So we said the first is you decide schemes and methods to perform tasks. Don't forget, you've already identified your key objective results. Then prioritize what to do. Then what are the schemes and methods to perform those tasks? Then you allocate resources, human, intellectual, financial, to those tasks. Then you deploy them, skills and techniques. That's why if you're planning about upgrade in health sector, you don't have the doctors, you don't have the nurses who can do that. Then you have all the beautiful hospitals, like in Melbourne, they had the best general hospital. When I went there to inspect, I said, where are the doctors? Everybody has underproduction of doctors. So it's really at the level of tactics you are missing, because nobody to deploy, you can't deploy that. There's a good book I like to read for strategists. It's the War Fighting, it's a US Marine book. It's called War Fighting. Interesting book. They tell you whether in combat or in non-combat situation, this works. You just have to have alignment between strategy, operation, and tactics, delivery. They say for want of nail, the shoe was lost. For want of shoe, what was lost? The horse. For want of horse, battle. For want of battle, empire. So it's tactics at the level of how do you deploy resources? No shoe, no nail to knock the shoe of the camera. You know, when you read it, it looks like a story. A horse has a shoe. No nail was missing. In all the inventory, they didn't take a nail. They built great strategy, great work plan. But there was nobody who talked about the tactics. Where is the nail? What do we need to couple with? They said nail. So no nail, they couldn't put the shoe on the horse. Because of that, the horse stumbled, they couldn't finish the race. They didn't finish the race, they lost the battle. They lost the battle, they lost the empire. Because of nail. And so you now see why countries fail, even with good intention. You now see why leaders, even with the best intention, may fail. Because if you that day I was studying the Bible and God spoke to me. In fact, the man of God was listening to me. And he says, life is all about seriousness. Seriousness. One thing, a moment of, for lack of focus, that nail might be packed somewhere, somebody forgot to take it along with you. So if you look at how nations are front and you see this and play. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now, I talk about the 8 habits. So what I like to do is to connect the fact that, look, both in personal transformation and national transformation, there are processes. Habits, so you talked about habits. Habits are applied to nations. Nations are victims of habits. That is why countries that have started well keep going up. Now, what we call the vicious circle of failure and success. If you watch, that's why if you look at Premiership or any league table, often the top 6 remain the same because of what we call the self-reinforcing circle of success and failure. A good player in bottom league, in bottom team, like Bolton Wanderer, let's assume, a great player emerges. What happens in the next season? He goes to Man City, Man City. Is that awesome? A good coach takes a bottom team to middle league. What happens? He goes up. So that's why people continue to fail and people continue to succeed. That's why nations continue to fail and nations continue to succeed, except there's what we call, there's a part dependence in life and what we call part dependence and disruption. So people continue in part of sciences, you say bodies continue in the motion until something acts upon them. So people continue in the part of failure until somehow a major thing hits them off the track of failure and they enter success. And they continue until a major misfortune drags them. So when leaders create a country, they changed a habit with a different habits. Obasanjo told our people to buy all the ministers to read from third to first. We read it. I don't know whether they read it, but the lesson they forget. That these people, leadership, change the country and life is intentional. And it's about habits that you change. And countries like Singapore, like China, like Taiwan, or any country, even the US, you discover at a particular time, certain what we call group take, what we call myths, narratives, they show social habits. Today, for example, in Nigeria, this habit of Nigerian people is to gain something for nothing. It's a social habit. It's a Nigerian habit. If they appoint me now as minister for something, my brothers who are not qualified for anything will feel entitled because it flows from the social habit of something for nothing. I was at credit school with a former foreign affairs senior ambassador in Singapore. He was applying to, got admitted to as a nursing fellow, and in coming to get a ticket, the ministry bought him a ticket, but he used the same ministry's agent to buy a ticket for his wife to accompany him. And he paid. It wasn't like, but so they indicted him for using state resources. So we all gathered together, all the fellows, the Attorney General of Singapore was one of our alumni. So we wrote letters. We're trying to use the university. They say he should come back to face criminal prosecution in mid-class. What I do, the guy told us, don't bother. It will not work. So they will try him. And they tried him, put him about, if you get this, couldn't intervene because they're afraid of Singapore. The guy was put back from Singapore, prosecuted, and jailed. So what about just say we should live by you? Does it really mean it? Because the culture they created is a culture of strict accountability, of separation between private and public. When I was someone of work, my driver would drop me at home and bring back the vehicle. I never used the official car. They don't park to my house. The one that I used, the Jeep that I used, they drop me and bring it back. I was the only person doing that. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that even when you make it, it will hurt people because our habits is different. It's a habit of state belongs to you. When I left and I bought music player from London through one lady. So when I called my PA when we left office, I said, this boss, did we pay for it? Is it our own money? Or is it office? See, a guy can't be sure. You can't remember. So look at a different receipt. I had some artwork there. I buy artworks, paintings, some came for the UNICEF to support them, but I wasn't sure which one was our money, which one was office. So I have to return back with a letter, the music equipment and the artwork. It was later, 2 years after that, the lady who bought it for me, Marilyn Amobi, who became bulk trader MD. So he went to the chairman's office and saw the banquet of flower he bought for me, from very expensive flower that he said there was. So why did if I didn't value what the gift she gave me, why did I tell her? She was so angry. I said, I wasn't too sure whether it was actually my money. So I had to return it. He said, no, it was my money, I bought it. So that music, that book goes, I bought it for you. So the point I'm trying to make is simple. The habits we have as a nation is the reason why we're not moving forward. Habits determine outcome. In fact, I believe that that's what I call the habit of holiness. Anybody who is holy, a Christian who is a good Christian, check out is about habits. Habits are what we do, and therefore next time there's no transaction cost. You not do it intuitively. First time of being holy is difficult. But when you now become, I give an example, when I was a student activist and then, I went to, I applied as OAU, above my university as a student at JAM. They said, cutoff point for Southeast is different. So I said, okay. I applied again to University of Calabar. And then someone told me, I said, why don't I apply because my village is the next village after 2 minutes or 10 minutes bicycle to River State. So I applied as a River student. I did. And then I scored very high. I didn't need to go as a River student. So, but it was on my record. I went to university, I was activist, I was fighting the school. So one day I was walking in Lagos Street, I said, how can I be lying that I'm from Rivers? Even though I don't collect their notice. So no, I went there to school, I changed it immediately. The vice chancellor said, I was the last leader, said, this activist want to kill. They set up a panel against me. My pastor then said, why you are stupid? People use these names. It was a big crisis. The university wanted, because I was activist, they said opportunity to kill me. So my dean called me and said they will sack you because everybody's looking for how to do it. But God, the vice chancellor himself who was fighting me, wrote to me and said they have pardoned me. In fact, when they come into a panel, I said, the university should be opportunity for you to change yourself. So I'm prepared to, in fact, I've taken JAM, I've already told my friend, Isio Sondo, who's a professor in America. Isio Sondo. He said, Sam, this is bad. Isi gave me from JAM form. He's doing service. I'll come and stay. Nobody will know. I will repeat. The vice chancellor wrote to me and said, you have been pardoned because now the point I'm making that I felt like, why should I lie? But that was a practice. So since then, it's easy, all my records are clean. Because the cost of now doing subsequent good work is zero. But the cost, what the economists call threshold cost, the cost of transaction for the first time, habits are very powerful. The first time you try to steal for your mother's pot of soup, you will struggle. Will they catch me? This is bad, though. I'll go to hell. How many of us have watched Living in Bondage? I don't want the scene where the guy says, hey, I'll go to hell if I do this thing. But when you get initiated, I start doing it. Everything, whether it's adultery, fornication, stealing, it becomes, it's no longer you doing it. It's an intuitive behavior. You now do it because there's no cost of doing it anymore. The cost of transacting, deciding, should I not, has been crossed. That's what the habit. Nations go to hell happily because they have become part of them. And good nations are habits that they created. So they don't know when they are holy. They don't know when they do the right thing. When they kill, people just kill. Because they don't look at the time they waste. But in Nigeria, people are killing. You say, but what people they do now? Because it's the cost of that habit is high. So I just want to prepare us for the notion of the idea of habits. Habits determine all we do in our life. Nations have habits, and until you locate those habits and change those habits. When you went to NEC, for example, one habit is that people get promoted without process, no exams. No. But when we started an exam, it was outcry. People do exam transparently, and when you pass, you get promoted. You have to find NYSC exam. When you do exam, purpose, you again, you do exam. The first 10 is taken. What are we trying to do? We're trying to change a habit of entitlement to a habit of process. So people, and I discovered something. One lady who didn't do well in the exam, we have 3 options. We say after exam, we'll take 3 spots for the people in the villa, okay? But everybody will do exam. So one lady, she failed and the setup called. I said, okay, so don't worry. We took her under that category. She became the best star because she had the sense that she needed to prove that she justified it. So I just want to show us how habits work. So the first habit I say for personal transformation and for group is moral choice. Make a moral choice and reinforce it. The day I said I want to live a man of integrity, my life changed. And I look at what is not aligned in my life. I start aligning it. You start from that choice. God said, choose ye this day who you will serve. After that choice, other things follow. So a nation must choose, we want to be a country that is defined by efficiency and production. You line up. Nigeria, if you don't choose, it actually shows what you have chosen. Nigeria has chosen to be an inefficient, corrupt country based on prerogative. That is why this Darwin College, I was telling my wife, I said, everything wrong with Nigeria is because we worship wealth and privilege. So people get, their parents